September 5th, 2023 shall come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Motion to approve the agenda, please.
So offered. Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Mark, that we approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. To the consent agenda, you have a copy of the minutes of August 21, 2023. We need approval of the bills and claims, of which you also have a copy. We have the following licenses and permits: liquor license, Class B, retail alcohol license, Quick Start number 223. That's a renewal. Motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dana, seconded by Gary, that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Now is the time and place for anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council on anything that is not on the agenda. Please approach the podium, state your name first and last, and give your address so the clerk can properly enter into the minutes. This is not a discussion time nor a question and answer time, and you have somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes. Welcome.
My name's Steve Nicholas. I live at 475 North Shore Drive, number 2E in Clear Lake. I have with me one of our pastors at Zion Lutheran Church, Derek Crawford. And I understand that there may be some work done at the band shell. And what I have to say, I want to preface with, we are bringing no commitment whatsoever with us, but we would be interested in seeing the scope of the project and hopefully so helping out with that project. As that unfolds, if someone would keep us informed, we'd certainly like to visit further. I preface my comment with this. I'm ending my comment with this. There is no commitment on the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone else? Not appearing, we'll move on to unfinished business, of which we have none. We'll move directly to 6A, new business, 2023 street resurfacing and alley improvement project update, review of pay from number 1, Jason Petersburg, engineer with V&K Engineering. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. Council. Heartland Asphalt has substantially completed work for the 2023 street resurfacing project, Division 2 work, which included the pavement scarification, full-depth asphalt patching, 2-inch asphalt overlay, fixture adjustments, primarily in the area north of Main Avenue, south of 7th Avenue, and then it also included the alley reconstruction between Buddy Holly and North 3rd Street, north of 7th Avenue North. Project included over 21,000 square yards of 2-inch asphalt overlay. That's the equivalent of a little over 1.25 miles of newly resurfaced streets. Work remaining to be completed includes a couple of structure adjustments or repairs, topsoil seeding, work along the alley portion of the project, primarily the edges of the alley, and then the punch list items. All in all, Division 2 work went really quickly. All of the concrete patchwork had already been completed earlier this spring under Division 1 by Wicks Construction. Pay estimate 1 in your packets covers work completed to date on the project. Net amount due to Heartland Asphalt after subtracting the 5% retainage is $561,631.54. We do recommend approval of pay estimate 1 for Heartland Asphalt, and the plan is to wrap up the remaining items yet this month and get this project closed out. Any questions?
Council, any questions for Jason? Thank you, Jason. Therefore, entertain a motion to approve pay as number 1 with regard to the 2023 street resurfacing alley improvement project in the amount of $561,631.54 to Heartland Asphalt, Mason City, Iowa. Motion, please.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Dana, that we approve pay estimate number 1. Is there any discussion?
Just a quick comment, Your Honor.
I've ridden almost all the newly fixed streets, and I lived on several of them over the course of my lifetime, and they're great. It's really quite the improvement. I even rode the alley just for the heck of it. That was actually today, and it's really a nice alley. So if you're out riding around and get down there by the Half Moon and want to zoom up that alley, it's a lot nicer than it was. But all in all, I just wanted to comment that lots of improvements, and all the other work that was done in conjunction with the work out near the schools is going to be such an improvement, because through the years a lot of people travel those streets on a regular basis. The buses go up and down them, and the kids won't have quite the bouncy ride they've had. Anyway, good job.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor of passment number 1, keep by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Thank you. 6B, short-term lease agreement for City Hall. It's the administrative offices, relocation between the City of Clear Lake and Pritchard Companies doing business as One Team Quest Way. Review proposal. Scott Flory, City Administrator. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Your Honor. Council, the yellow sheets in your packet address this item. We've discussed this once or twice at previous council meetings. As I mentioned, we're in the process of negotiating a short-term lease for space at the former TQ Technologies Suite located at the Pritchard Innovation Center at One Team Quest Way. So those are the yellow sheets in your packet, are the lease proposal. Of course, the purpose of the lease is to provide for our temporary relocation of the administrative portion of this building while we're undergoing a security upgrade and remodeling project. And if you recall from one of the previous council meetings, the architect had given his opinion that by relocating out of the facilities here and not having to go through multiple sequencing and staging of the project for construction purposes, and also for just overall general safety, that this would translate into a much more favorable bid situation for the city vis-a-vis the contractor, again, without having to set up for staging 4 or 5 different times. And again, as I mentioned, on top of the safety and convenience factors addressed there. So again, we did negotiate this lease with Pritchard Corporation. Generally, the lease would run from September of this year to June of 2024. Cost of the lease is $4,000 a month, and that does include all the utilities as well as snow removal. There's, I think, roughly 7 office spaces out there, and then the lobby area. It is a standalone portion of the building, so it's not accessible from the rest of the Innovation Center, and we would anticipate that during the month of September, we'd like to start relocating some of our office operations out to that location, with the goal being to be fully operational sometime in October out there. So do want to also, just as a reminder, and I'll go through the lease here in just a minute, again, at the previous meeting, we had the project architect here, and who reviewed in a lot of detail the proposed plans and specifications, remodeling project that we're talking about here to modernize, the offices and the security upgrades and everything. And so just in the way of review again on that, these are significant improvements to our HVAC system. So just tonight's a classic case. It's about 74 in here. It's about 85 in the lobby and 65 over in our administrative side. So the HVAC is something that's really been vexing for probably more than 20 years here. So that's been long in need of an upgrade, and the radiators, the registers that are on the wall. When we previously had gone through a remodeling project here, the bulk of that work was done over at the police department, and we had mostly some cosmetic upgrades. We did have some more physical improvements to the superstructure of the building itself. If you recall, we had the vintage 1965 single-pane windows on the building, of course, outlawed by the energy codes, obviously. And so we did replace the windows, and we modernized some of the glass here and some of the areas to bulletproof glass and so forth. So a lot of improvements related to the HVAC. We also have ADA accommodations that we're building into the new remodeling plan. So to adjust our counter heights, we do get a fair amount of folks in here that are in wheelchairs, for example, and so our counters do not accommodate that. And when we go through a remodeling project, we'll have counters structured so that we can accommodate those with disabilities going forward as well. So. Also, that we would be, creating obviously a much safer work environment for the staff, but also to create additional office space for expanded opportunities here for staffing. So right now we're completely maxed out. We don't have any spare offices for any additional staff in the event that we would make a decision to add some additional people here. So that just is a brief reminder of that. Additionally, on top of that, we will, at our next meeting, be setting the date for the bid letting and the public hearing on that. So we're looking at probably a bid letting sometime the first part of October, so probably around October 2nd or 3rd, I think is what we're targeting for a bid date. But we'll have those dates locked down for you at your next meeting, likewise setting the date for the hearing. So again, the idea would be then to start construction on that probably in October, November, and be complete in June. So, just in terms of the lease itself, I do want to give a recognition to Cal here tonight with Pritchard's Corporation. Terrific guy to work with throughout this process. Almost made it too easy for us, and he was very accommodating to our staff, and I appreciate that. I think we had taken 3 or 4 different trips out there to look at the space, and a lot of thanks to him and the people that he worked for to make these improvements because the space really sets up pretty well for us. So. The yellow sheets, again, we're talking about basically 1,900 square feet out there at the One Team Quest Way. I don't have a specific address yet, so some of those will pencil in some of those details here a little bit later on, but I wanted to get the lease in front of you and get your approval on that so we can go forward with some relocation stuff. But we don't have the exact address yet. I assume it'll be a suite number or letter attached to the address, but I don't have that just yet. As I mentioned, the term, we'd like to start moving in here yet this month, so probably start the lease here in September sometime, probably at least either full or partial month of rent there. The lease does renew automatically month to month, and we would, of course, give 30 days prior notice to the end of the term. So just continue on, just hit some of the highlights here for you. Again, as I mentioned, the rental rate is $4,000 per month. Working our way down, there is a standard, just a rental deposit, but that is waived for us, so thank you for that. Working our way down a little bit further, under 9, quiet enjoyment, the landlords agreed not to lease the adjoining building space to tenants who would interfere with any of our intended use of the property. On the next page, condition of the premises, again, I'd just say that we've been out there multiple times. I've been out there a couple of times. I think Jennifer and the office staff have been out there at least 3 times as well, and it really looks good and should do really a nice job for us in this short-term period. We are responsible just for some basic housekeeping kinds of responsibilities on the premises. As I mentioned, the landlord's responsible for the snow removal and all the capital equipment and things like that. Continuing on page 4 there, G, we are responsible for the interior decorating, so we're bringing in Gary Hughey to lend an assist with that because he's got specialized knowledge in all of that, so we're good to go there. Under 11, utilities and service, mostly this is a triple net lease, so if you're familiar with that, basically the landlord's responsible for everything but general housekeeping items. Next page, under removal of fixtures, I think the only thing I'd point out is that, of course, any damage by removal of items, we would restore the property to the existing condition as when we occupied it. So only thing I can think of is if we mount some TVs or something to the wall, you might be some patching work or something like that that would have to be done. Assignment and subletting, obviously that won't be an issue here for us. Real estate taxes, the landlord is responsible for those. The personal property tax is not applicable, as well as the special assessment. Insurance being the next one, the landlord, of course, insures the real estate in the building itself. We're responsible as a city for our own personal contents of that. So have run this lease through our insurance carrier, and they've provided some comments and review on that. So we're good there. Again, it's just indicating on the liability insurance, just the general limits that we would have. So we're definitely covered under that. And we'd also name the landlord as an additional insured for purposes of the insurance. Probably the next item I'd go to is on page 9 on signage. We don't really have any plans for any extensive signage, probably just some graphics that would be placed on the door and window area out there, but not planning on putting like a monument sign or any kind of pole sign or anything like that out there. So that is probably about it on the lease. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
No questions, but just a comment. Glad you gave a little context on the City Hall. I've had at least a couple of citizens that recalled that, I believe it was around 2015, the City Hall was remodeled, and I put the air quotes around it because it was more cosmetic than anything. And as I recall, when we got the fire station completed in 2010, then there became a need to upgrade the PD. They were in 2 small closets and 3 hallways or whatever it was before they added the fire station. And we had just floated a bond for the fire station, weren't in a big hurry to do that, so we threw some money in the budget over the course of, I think, 4 years, and then we took off on this project and wrote the check when we were done without any borrowing. Probably the biggest change was where we sit here at that particular time, and maybe some additional lighting and things like that. The old council chamber, for those that weren't aware, is kind of the conference room behind the City Hall offices there. So anyway, just to clarify a few things, I'll throw that out there.
No, I appreciate that. That was very well done. Absolutely correct. We've done pretty well with this building. You know, some may build a new building. You know, if you were looking at a new building for this, you might be looking at about $7 to $8 million for that. The amount of money that we'll have spent for the police department and this department, I'll just say very politely, there's a shadow of what that would be. So yeah, we have definitely not. We've been pretty careful about what we have put into these projects. So you know, I know going from single pane windows to actual, you know, real windows anymore. You know, we did some of these things, and as you mentioned, I'm glad you did the lighting. We had the old lighting that was outdated by the energy codes again. So many of these things that we upgraded were just the bare minimums, taking us from 1965, and a lot of these cases are maybe 1985 in some cases, up to about you know, the 21st century a little bit. So.
Yeah, and location. This is a good one. One last comment, and I'll shut up. My grandma's next door neighbor, Arlie Eddy, is on the original plaque out there. He was a councilman. And so, as a little kid, I'd be mowing the lawn up there, and he was kind enough to come over and talk to this stupid little kid mowing the lawn, and made a big impression, and that's maybe one of the reasons I've sat here for as long as I have. So there we go.
Mm-hmm.
one comment for those who are anxious on, and saying, oh gosh, I got to find that place to begin with, and then I sure hope it's easy access for me. The fact that it's on this west end of that building, right off of, what road is that, 25th?
24th.
24th. Very easy, it's wheelchair accessible, and, they should have no qualms about coming
Yep,
there. at all.
and once we get this approved, we'll start officially kind of putting that information out there about the relocation. But yeah, I think everyone will be able to find it, plenty of parking out there. We'll still be, as we discussed last time, holding our council meetings here, and some of our bigger meetings will have to be held here, and we'll still, of course, be accommodating the November 7th election that will take place here in this room. But by and large, our operations will be relocated, so.
And a very reasonable rental lease agreement.
Very much.
Anything else, council?
Yeah, I was just going to echo that, Mayor. I agree. Scott, again, thank you, and to Cal for coming, a very reasonable rate, as the mayor said, and I just think it's great that we could work with a local business to really find an ideal solution for this kind of renovation. So thanks to Pritchard's, and thank you to Cal, and you as well, Scott. Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you, Scott. Therefore, I'll entertain a motion to approve a lease agreement proposal by the city council with City of Clear Lake with Pritchard Companies doing business as One Team Quest Way. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Bennett, seconded by Mark. We approve the lease agreement with Pritchard Companies. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. 6C, South Lakeview Drive HMA Level Course Overlay Project Update Review of Pay Estimate Number 1. Jason Petersburg. Welcome again, Jason.
Thanks again, Mayor. Council, start with a quick update on the South Lakeview Drive project. Work on the project has been substantially completed by Heartland Asphalt. As you recall, several different paving, patching, leveling options were considered for improving the ride along South Lakeview Drive from South Shore Drive south to State Park. In the end, the option of profile milling the entire stretch of the road and then installing a thin asphalt overlay was selected, as that option offered the best value. Heartland has submitted their invoice for the project. Total amount due is $60,345.45. This matches the quote as approved by the city. Note, this was considered a maintenance project. There were no formal bid documents on this, so there is no retainage being withheld with this. We do recommend payment be made to Heartland Asphalt accordingly.
Questions, council? Thank you, Jason. Therefore, entertain a motion to approve pay estimate number 1, which is the final payment with regard to South Lakeview Drive HMA Level Course Overlay in the amount of $60,345.45 to Heartland Asphalt, Mason City. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dan, seconded by Mark, that we approve pay estimate number 1. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Final plat for Hanson's First Edition subdivision. Review of subdivision recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission. Mike Ritter, building official. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. In your packet, the green sheets followed by the white final plat that was submitted in there is for a 3-lot subdivision, which was formerly an outlot and a previous subdivision developed up in Fieldstone. There is no change of zoning that's in there. It's single-family owned houses, no duplexes or anything else. The work has been, utilities are been extended and updated, finished off at that point, and a couple paperwork items need to be finished. Turned in some as-built drawings, a couple other items, but other than that, went through planning and zoning, and they voted to approve it and send it on to you for your approval.
Council, any questions for Mike? Not appearing. Thank you, Mike. I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2332, accepting and approving a final plat for Hanson's First Edition.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Gary, seconded by Mike, that we approve Resolution 2332. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Mark?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
And Dana?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Resolution 2332 is duly adopted. E, Destination Iowa Surf District Music Enrichment Interpretive Center, intro, Mr. Flory.
Thank you, Your Honor. Council, a couple of items here in your packet, and we're going to have a PowerPoint presentation here in a moment, but the gray sheets and white sheet there in your packet are relevant to this item. You may recall, it's actually just about a year ago today that the City Council had authorized the grant to be submitted to the Destination Iowa program. Specifically, we had applied to the Creative Placemaking program for this transformational project located within the Surf District area. So again, that was September 30th, that was due. We were notified, I should also indicate, although we were notified in December of 2022 that we had our application favorably received, we had some favorable indicators prior to that. I think I've shared with you before, there was, I think it was in November, Department of Economic Development Director Debbie Durham was in town for the Bob Fisher radio program and had mentioned the Clear Lake Surf District project as part of that show over there. And I just will always remember, in fact, I have them recorded, so but her comment about our project was, "I love that project." And just always stuck with me that someone in her position would make such a profound statement about the project application that we had submitted. So then in February, we had gone through, we had done a number of necessary prerequisite legal matters to position ourselves for this project, including amending our urban renewal areas and having a number of public hearings and so forth to undertake these various projects that were identified within the Surf District Destination Iowa grant application itself. So that was basically wrapped up in February. Then in March, the grant agreement between the city, the department, and should also, just as a reminder, the North Iowa Cultural Center and Museum, the 501c3 nonprofit entity that manages the day-to-day operations of the Surf Ballroom itself, was also a partner to that application, so required all three entities to approve that grant agreement with the state, and so that was done in March of 2023. In April, we had gone through a consultant selection process and had selected Atura Architects of Clear Lake here as the design professional on the project, and had consequently approved a professional services agreement with them for the Music Enrichment and Interpretive Center project. So since that time, we've had a local group of city officials and representatives of the North Iowa Cultural Center and Museum working with the design professional on what you'll see here this evening. So again, this is one of the major projects in the Destination Iowa Creative Placemaking application that was submitted to the state and approved, of course. This particular piece involves the development of a new music enrichment and interpretive center. The new facility be constructed at or near the intersection of North Shore Drive and 7th Avenue North, and the location currently, of course, is owned by the North Iowa Cultural Center and Museum, and of course houses the Fiddler's Den as well as the little White House that's kind of referred to colloquially as the Shack. There, so essentially that the footprint for this, and you'll see it here on the presentation here in a moment, would be in that general area there. So once the facility is constructed, the North Iowa Cultural Center and Museum would have a long-term lease in exchange for the contribution of the properties that they own. They would have a long-term lease with the city in exchange for that space in the new facility. So generally speaking, the new facility is roughly 2 stories, approximately 13,000 total square feet, and done in the original Art Deco style of the Surf Ballroom itself. So the estimated project budget was defined for the overall project here, the Music Enrichment and Interpretive Center, of $6.5 million. That's an all-in cost, construction, engineering, design, everything. That was generally what we had targeted for this project as a project budget. So This particular project, we propose to utilize the construction manager at risk selection process. This is going to be a new one, so Austin Peel with Atura will review that with you. His firm's done a couple of these previously. It's very new in the state of Iowa, signed into law by Governor Reynolds just a little over a year ago. It's been used, I know, on the Destination Iowa project in Marion. So when we were kind of considering whether or not we wanted to proceed under this particular bid type process, we had arranged with RDG I think a few of you may have participated in that, pretty extensive call with the city engineer of Marion, who really quarterbacked that entire, if you haven't been to Marion, I encourage you to go, because what they've done downtown with their project and the library is phenomenal, but same kind of project, and they utilize the construction manager at risk as the project delivery method there. So again, as I say, it's very new. It's only been done a few times in the state of Iowa. I don't know too many cities, maybe I'd say less than 10 projects that have been done under this new method. I know a number of school districts are also utilizing this process, and for many, many years, there was always an effort to try to, what in other states a design-build process is allowed for by law, and it was never allowed for here. So that is something that has changed under our state leadership, and that is now something that we can utilize here as a option to the traditional design, bid, build, procurement method. So again, under this particular method, and Austin will review this with you momentarily, it's kind of like a bifurcated process where you submit, and he'll review this schedule with you. You send out a request for proposals. That goes out on a very broad statewide basis, inviting proposals to be submitted for this particular project. You receive those proposals, you review them, and then you make selections based on who gets invited into the next level for a statement of qualifications. And that's more of the process that contains the actual bid itself for the work. So it's a process that essentially the bid is the bid. So there aren't any change orders with that. That's the number, and you're locked into that. In absent some really extraordinary circumstances, which again, like a sort of a black swan event, if you will, like the pandemic, that's the number that the contractor has to live with. So for so long, of course, we've always had to live under the low bid method. And as you know from past experience, not always necessarily is the low bid the best bid. So this is an alternative delivery model that allows us to utilize criteria that we would formalize in this proposal to ensure that we are getting the best bid. Even though the state language doesn't necessarily define precisely what is the best bid, we have a lot of latitude in that. So we would have a rubric that would identify our weighting formulas associated with how these proposals would be scored. So, and I think when we look at a project like this, I had always said that this was something that what we're talking about here is tailor-made for this kind of delivery method, where not necessarily the low bidder is the one that you want to select on a project that involves a lot of skill, ability to perform, deliver on time, on budget, and pride, all those kinds of things. So there's a number of things that I would describe as intangible that we would want to put some strict evaluation to, that under the traditional bidding we're not allowed to do. It's just pretty much the low bid is who receives the project. So of course, again, this project involves extensively federal funding involved in it through the ARPA funds. So this has got a laundry list of federal, if you recall from our procurement policy, was one of the things that we adopted earlier this year to ensure compliance with an enormity of federal regulation associated with this. So the auditing requirements and everything that goes along with this is extremely extensive. So the design professional in this case has familiarity with that, and we'll have to work together to ensure that we're in strict compliance. Again, our legal counsel is with us, outside legal counsel, every step of the way along this process, because we just don't want any missteps. Can't afford them on a project like this. So definitely have to do our diligence there. Just as a reminder, the state funding on this project, just like the streetscape project that you'll be hearing, if you remember from the previous council meeting, I'd indicated that RDG would be here at your September 18th council meeting, and we'll do the same presentation on the streetscape at that meeting as well. But just as a reminder, these are on 40% reimbursement basis. So, we get 40% from the state. The city has to fund 60% of the project. So we will have to arrange for short-term interim financing here until the projects are completed. The state does not reimburse until the projects are completed and they have the chance to run their audit, and then we get reimbursed for it. So our short-term financing could be somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 years, maybe more, on that. So once it's done and audited and accepted by the city and the state, and then we'll be able to file for our reimbursement of that 40% on these projects, and then solidify our permanent long-term financing. Now, one optimistic outlook, I guess, on that is hopefully between now and then, maybe the interest rates will come down a little bit. You never know. So right now, we're probably looking in the upper threes, on something like this. But in a couple of years, we could be lower than that. So again, would translate into a savings for us on debt service there as well. So I guess I don't have anything further in terms of an introduction, unless anybody has any questions. I'm excited for Austin to come up. Jeff Nicholas also is here from the North Iowa Cultural Center Museum, and I wanted to invite him as well to say a few words before we get started. And it's kind of a important moment for us. It's our first Destination Iowa project. It's going to be a long process for us, so this will probably be something that you're seeing and hearing about for the next 3 years at least. So.
Any questions, Council?
Yes, Mayor, just real quick. Scott, thank you for the explanation of why we're doing this with the construction manager at risk process. It sounds to me like, from what you said, that gives us a great deal of flexibility in a way to, as you said, get the best bid. Whereas the old system, we were constrained to take the low bid.
Yeah, I would say you've got that perfect, except for the best bid, I'd say the best contractor.
Yeah, there you go.
So
that's a great way to put it.
We're not really able to quite negotiate on that,
Right.
On that bid number, but it definitely enables us to take the bid into consideration according to whatever percentage we weight that at on a rubric, but it really gives us the opportunity to leverage a contractor's reputation, their skill, their interest in doing the best project they can. Not everyone is so vested in some of these projects.
See, I think that's exactly right, and that's why I love that. And again, thank you for the explanation and for the public to understand that because that contractor will have the specialized skill and ability to make this a fantastic project. And so,
Agreed.
Sounds like a terrific approach.
Yep, I agree. And it's not one that we would use for all of our projects, for example, but things that involve really, again, a building project like this, at this level in particular, we want to be careful.
It's very important. Thank you.
I think this is critical to have, and I'm anxious to hear what Austin has to say. If, this being a 60-40, and which I think is wonderful, we are one of two to get that. The other one was good big old Davenport, and there are only about 42 cities in the state that are that big or bigger, and here we are down the 2,000 to 10,000 range population, and we get a 4.3 grant, and obviously IEDA, Iowa Economic Development Authority in Des Moines, really felt the same. Who knows what they were thinking prior to this, but when they saw this written, they, chose to grant us that amount of money. Now, if we've got that amount of money, and we've got a timetable on this, correct?
That's correct.
So you started by 2042, and
Going forward.
hopefully completed by
2026.
2026. That's as critical as you can get. And you've got to have, with a project this big, you have to have a manager who knows what he or she is doing. I happened to talk to one, this is 3 years ago, never knowing that this is all coming up, but toward the building in Des Moines that is right across from the sculpture park there off of Grand. It's the Blue Cross Blue Shield Wellness Building, is that what the name of it is? And went through that and talked to the gentleman that was in charge of all that, and the ordering of things, to making sure things are there on time, making sure things that are done. It certainly takes a relief off the GC too, I'm sure, where you have somebody there, although, who knows, there could be friction there too, and there may well be. But I think it's probably money very, very well spent in this particular case. And now the guy that I talked to, he himself is a CMA, what's the last word?
At risk.
Yeah, in Des Moines, and I've lost track of where he is at the present time, but that's critical. It may not be common up here in a town of 7,600 that was lucky enough to get a wonderful bid, do some quarterbacking by our city administrator. Anyway, enough out of my mouth. Would we want to have Jeff come up next, or?
Jeff's fine, yeah.
Yeah, all right, Jeff. Jeff Nicholas, Cultural Center and Museum,
Jeff Nicholas,
prefaced by Surf, right?
native Clear Laker. Mr. Mayor, Council, Scott, it's wonderful to stand in front of you and to talk about this project. It's already been a year, probably going to be 2 or 3 more years before it's all completely done. But we were very excited as the North Iowa Cultural Center and Museum to come together and partner with you all for this endeavor. We live in such a wonderful community, but when you have a community like this with the lake and with the surf ballroom, it's such a worldwide asset. There's responsibility. And I think this is us as a whole community taking responsibility to move our community and the surf ballroom way, way, way into the future. And we are so excited. There have been tons and tons of meetings. We've traveled a number of places. It's not only logistical things that we have to make decisions on and legal things we have to make decisions on, but right now we're in kind of that creative portion, because we are going to make the music, well, it was the Music Enrichment Center, but it's the Music Enrichment and Immersion Center into a world-class facility that people are going to want to come from not only all over North Iowa, but all over the country and all over the world. So we can continue to tell the story in a cutting edge and a forward-thinking way about Buddy Ritchie and the Bopper, about the big bands, about country western, about the surf ballroom, about our community in Clear Lake, Iowa. And we are just so excited. We just can't wait to get this project, get some shovels in the ground and get this project started. I want to particularly mention Scott and the mayor on their leadership for this. And we obviously wouldn't even have thought of beginning this without their and your all's leadership. And so we want to thank you for that. So you can hear me blabble on about how wonderful everything is, but I have a couple of friends here from across the big pond, and I'd like to have them come up, and they're just both going to say, both of you come up at the same time. And I'm going to stand right here by the microphone. They say you're never supposed to give up the microphone, but we're going to try. But these are 2 gentlemen that have been to the winter dance party and to the surf and to your community time after time after time. And I just want them to tell you a little bit about what it means to them to come here and experience our town and our surf and our music. John?
Welcome. State your name, if you would, John.
John Cumberland, and this is John Young, my partner in crime. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council and everybody here for listening to what we have to say. We came here firstly in 2016, and Clear Lake, I get quite emotional about Clear Lake because to me, I'm a music lover. When we first came here in 2016, I had an idea of making a movie to try and get J.P. Richardson, the big bopper, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And his son Jay was going to be in the movie, and unfortunately he passed away, so I took the torch up, and that's what I've been doing all this time. And the first time I ever came here, we've been made so welcome. I don't know if you ever saw the movie about a guy with his bucket list. I think it was Jack Nicholson. Well, my bucket list's been completely filled. When I walked into the door of the Surf Ballroom, I couldn't believe my eyes. You have the holy grail of rock and roll here in your town. And I'm here today and I'm amazed. I'm amazed just how professional you guys are and how you handle this. Your country and our country could be handled by you guys. It is amazing. And really, Jeff, and out of all of the surf for me, I'm sorry I'll take too much time, out of all of the surf for me, when I walk around there and I look at the guys, and Roger Peterson, the young pilot as well, we visited his grave in Storm Lake yesterday, pay our respects. But everybody in there, everybody who was visited there, what brings a lump to my throat is Mr. Snyder and his wife just there holding each other as they dance on the dance floor. And I just think, you know, that place has been saved for the likes of me, 6,000 miles away, to come here. And it makes my life, actually. I'm 65 years old. I was in the scrap metal business. That's what I've employed hundreds of people. But if I never see anything else, or I never do anything else, to come to Clear Lake, it's just so heartwarming. And I know thousands and thousands of people, music lovers like myself, and people, famous people, who come here, it just has that effect. And you have a lovely, lovely town. And I know whatever improvements you do, I can see you're passionate. You love your town. We love your town. And that's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello there. My name is John Young, and I'm John's partner in crime. John's said everything about Clear Lake and about the people and about Jeff and Laurie and all the people at the surf. It's been an amazing experience for all of us. I just want to say to you, I've been fortunate in my life to travel in this country for the last 35 years. I had a subsea oil drilling equipment company, so I've spent a lot of time in the US. And, you know, people speak to me because we're from England, and they'll say, oh, you've got history and you've got, you know, your country. And I said, history, whether it's 1 year, 5 years, or 5,000 is history. And you have to protect the history that you've got, not destroy it, not that you are, but you know what I mean? History is vital to all of us and to the future and to our future generations. And if, you know, this that you're doing here is not for you guys, it's for the future. Yes, hopefully it'll bring tourists, but all I can say to you is that it's important to protect your history, and I'm sure you all know that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there you have it. I think we have a responsibility not only to ourselves, to our kids and our grandkids, but people from around the world like that and around the country that love our community, love what we have here, and let's take it to future generations. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Austin? Welcome, Austin.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Appreciate it. I think Jeff did a great job of kind of setting the stage for what we're going to show you tonight, and incredibly grateful for the opportunity to get to work with the city and Nickham and the surf, and obviously they bring a lot of passion and a lot of desire to not only maintain the history of the district, but also the future of it as well. So we're grateful to have a part in that. I mentioned here several months ago how our firm had involvement in the original surf and then the current surf as well, and so we're grateful for that as well, that we get to continue with some of that history. What we have for you tonight is more or less
the culmination of a lot of these meetings over the last few months. While it might look very defined, there's a lot of information that's missing that we're continuing developing through additional consultants and museum aspects and interpretive aspects that are going to be put into place here in the coming months. So we'll kind of walk you through on some of those areas, but ultimately the intent is to give you a vision for what the facility is going to represent, which is kind of paying homage to the original surf. It's some of the Art Deco design. We also don't want to forget the fact that this isn't the crown jewel of the area, right? The intent is the surf remains the focal point for the district. And so there's going to be a lot of tribute to that, and there's going to be a lot of, you know, fancy things within there, but ultimately the goal is to direct everyone to that venue. That's both represented through the visuals that are in there and the styling, but also through some of the event space and rentable space. Careful consideration was given to not cannibalize on the amenities that you have within the surf, but to be able to provide additional use year-round for that. So we'll give you kind of a tour of that, and Jared and I will talk you through some of the items in there, but ultimately we want to be able to just let you see it. We can talk about the floor plan and some of the other items after that, and then we'll get into the CMR as well. Jen, if you want to go ahead and play that whenever you're ready.
Is that all right if we take our chairs over here before you start, so wait till we can see it better? All right.
Certainly, we're starting off looking to the east from an aerial, kind of to line yourself up. You got 3 surf plazas to the left there, and the surf ballroom to the right. So this is kind of the layer of in-between uses with the proposed Oaks Hotel. As you'll start to pick up, we're kind of tasked with the marriage of a lot of different decades. We look to inspiration of the original surf, and kind of the Art Deco styling, how that blends into mid-century modern to current day touches. So we definitely looked on the use of bold colors and kind of that surf spirit of what the existing surf has to it and how this can build upon that. As we've talked about in our meetings of how you build a museum experience or visitor experience, this is really kind of the starting point to help build that experience for our guests. So this would be an experience theater where there'd be a short video for museum goers or tour visitors. This is going to be an exploratory. We're working through consultant interviews right now to bring them on to do interactive museum type displays in that area. That's why it's pretty much blank. Obviously, as you exit that area, that's kind of a straight shot over to the surf. We'll head upstairs.
Main level acts as the primary tour and starting place for any surf tour and subsequent tours. The upper level is more of a shared space for breakout events and meetings.
Yep, so upstairs is predominantly kind of a rentable space. It'll have an event hall that holds 100 roughly, probably a little over that. Again, kind of play it back to the barrel roof with some Art Deco styling. There's a kitchen, a catering kitchen to service the area, and then come out to a rooftop deck that'll provide great views of the lake and social experience for obviously guests and people that may want to rent that area. And then the other big piece for programming is the music lessons for the Music Enrichment Center. So this will be kind of that space, and it will double as the reading room for visiting artists. So there's a couple bathrooms in there with showers.
space for artists to come in and before and after their shows. It allows a control point to the building to where you have some access control to the whole place. And then lastly, you have that kind of throwback to the three artists, and worked some with RDG on kind of that site connection and helping amplify the streetscape piece in and around that area.
Yeah, and so again, one of the big elements that are missing from there is there's certainly a partnership with RDG as they work on the streetscape. Again, I won't get into it real deep, but more of the importance on that CMR approach as well. And then lastly, along with RDG, there's a lot of stimulation within that. I mean, there's a lot of colors, there's a lot of graphics, there's a lot of elements, but ultimately most of that will come through your interpretive center in the experience theater as well, or the exploratory in your experience theater as well. And it's hard to kind of convey what those spaces can look like because the possibilities are endless there, whether that's kind of a full immersion of digital representation and videos surrounding you on the walls, or it's just a standard video in front of you and really depicting kind of the history of the surf and some of the famous artists that came from there and the history of that, all the way through kind of a museum aspect that really gives you a good tour of that history tangibly in front of you. So really the goal with that aspect and even the outside will be a lot of connecting generations. So it's not an element where our goal is to reach a certain demographic. We want to really encompass toddlers all the way through seniors, just to really help draw in that and educate people on the history here. So be happy to answer any questions with that. We can certainly pull the video back to certain areas if there's things you want to talk about. I'll leave that up to you guys.
One quick first comment, and Scott, correct me here if I'm wrong, but the grant that we got covered the streetscape, the access to the lake, and the music enrichment center.
That's correct.
That's what we, okay. All right, thanks.
I was going to mention, just in terms of the original surf had the outdoor rooftop observation area. So I think in the presentation, we saw the rooftop, but that really, again, back to paying homage to what the original surf looked like, the rooftop observation area, that's what we're trying to replicate here with that opportunity.
Correct. Yep. And expand on that as much as we can and have usable space for that. Good point.
Comments, council?
Mention also briefly that Jerry and Austin mentioned the space that you saw for interpretive and immersive opportunities. We're working, it would be a sub-consultant to Atura on that situation there. So those would be things that would yet to be defined, but really would have that pizzazz, as I would say, sizzle, if you would, when you see these kinds of exhibits and features in many of these kinds of buildings around that have them. So some of the folks that were interviewing for those opportunities worked on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland and Iowa's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. One of my favorite moments in history was the Battle of Midway, and he's got experience working on interpretive center of that particular moment in time. And so really I think the things that are going to go on inside of it the building looks great and it's neat stuff, but I think the immersive interpretive opportunities that will develop working forward through this are going to be really neat. We've talked, I'm glad Jeff mentioned it, I think, and you used the word that I appreciate is the responsibility. There's a responsibility, I think, that we have to ensure that this genre remains interesting and relevant in the 21st century. And how do we communicate that to younger generations. And the way I see that happening is through, I was telling Nelson one day, he had the privilege of going with me to the Joslin Art Museum one time, and that's the paintings on the wall and a little sticker that tells you a little bit about it, but he's also had the privilege of going to the immersive Van Gogh. And that's how those stories are being made relevant and interesting to people of subsequent generations. And so this gives us that unique opportunity through this building to be able to continue on with the story of the three artists, the genre, the music, the Winter Dance Party. There's a lot to tell and ensure that it stays relevant for a long time.
This, I believe, is really going to be important locally as well. You said it back there, it's intergenerational. You can go from your little tykes right on up to us and through us, gray hair people and beyond. They can all use that. Now, you aren't going to get a whole lot of people that are going to come from Sheffield, England, to come down and learn how to play the guitar for 2 weeks and go back home. But you will get a lot of local people that will come in and take advantage of that. And, those who want to go on and exceed, here's an opportunity for them to learn. It's a learning, not just enrichment, but it's enrichment education center. And they're able to learn there, and that's the aspect that I can see for us local folks.
And I think, can I just add, I think we're uniquely positioned in a spot where we probably wouldn't have been able to do this even 2 or 3 years ago with all the AI stuff, and I'm not sure I like this AI stuff. I'm cynical about it, but this may be a situation where AI really may enhance this. Holograms, I mean, you may come into there and be able to shake hands with Buddy Holly, and it looks, like Buddy Holly. All these cutting edge, forward-thinking things, and we've had a couple of these consultants in, and they're telling us about how you can take the Dead Sea Scrolls in front of you and literally unwrap them and move them and manipulate them around. And there are just so many things that can make this world-class that I don't think probably were available to us even 3, 4, 5 years ago. So it's pretty exciting.
I'm not an artsy guy and never have been, probably never will be, but this Van Gogh immersive deal kind of blew me away. But, the rest of the stuff, the museum that we went to in, where was it, Omaha, some of that's like watching paint dry for me. But otherwise, it's, this really.
And we've heard feedback from some of the museum consultants, which is really nice to hear, where they understand that there are different types of visitors to these museums, and they understand the challenges. And so it's been really nice on the front end to hear some of that they acknowledge some of our fears in planning for this type of space, because I don't think we want something that's stagnant. We want something that has life and that encourages people to come back.
Participatory, it's got to be. Council, anything else?
Yes, Mayor. Well, my reaction to the video, guys, is just to say, wow. I mean, that was truly amazing. And I think this Music Enrichment Center as part of the Surf District will truly be a unique asset and attraction for, again, the people of Clear Lake and for visitors to Clear Lake and to the surf. Just really unique. I really love the particular focus, as Scott and others have described, of the interpretive center and of using immersive features, because I think that will create a focus on education for the public and create people that come back. Just to give you an example, I'd love to visit the World War II Museum at some point in New Orleans. I think some of you have been there, and I think they use and incorporate some of these technologies. I've been to places like Gettysburg or other historical sites that use these kind of features, and I think that will be a very incredible draw for this facility here. Honestly, I think we're creating a legacy here for future generations that's very important to invest in. Because our commitment here is, and my commitment is, to preserve that history and preserve that music that in my mind has never died and never will with our commitment to things like this. So I just want to thank everyone involved with this, from the North Iowa Cultural Center and Museum Board, Paul and Shane and Jeff and everyone involved. Scott, your leadership on this. I think, again, it's just going to be an amazing, amazing project for Clear Lake, and I'm very proud to support it. So thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
All right, and I will touch on the CMR as well. So Scott did a really good job of explaining that, and you could really get into the weeds with a lot of the details in it. I think ultimately the things that I'd like to highlight within that process as it pertains to this project would be, and your traditional route of design, bid, build would be that going this route with the CMR allows for contractor involvement on the pre-construction phase. So you think about the number of moving parts that are happening both just with this project, with the proposed hotel or the streetscape, and a number of items on the list for those projects. There's certainly a coordination aspect to this. Now, from a design professional standpoint, we provide coordination, but there's a different level of coordination when it comes to a lot of overlapping projects like that. And so somebody that's involved, that's able to help clearly define that is certainly value added to the project overall, helping create those boundaries and that understanding when bid packages go out. The process is a lot more stringent from a time frame standpoint, with checks and balances throughout along the way. So the first step, what we'd be doing here tonight, would be approving the public notice for the intent for an RFP. So from there, we have 13 days before we actually release the RFP. So at that point, we'll wait and receive qualifications back from a contractor. After that point, based on a criteria of determined by the city and NICM and whomever else for selection, then we'll receive proposals. So the fees and that sort of thing comes at the end. And to Scott's point, it's the best value is how they define that from a selection standpoint. Get to see the costs up front, but you also get to see some of the other intangible things that these contractors bring to the project. In addition to that, the contractors also have the ability to self-perform the work. That can happen in a number of different ways. That can be through threshold of bidding requirements, or it can be through submitting a bid just like all the other qualified subcontractors. So a lot of things to work out through that. A lot of that's just a preference based on the city and how you guys would like to handle that. Ultimately, it started, or this program was released and made public for Iowa July of 2022. At that time, Iowa was only one of 2 states in the entire country that did not use a CMR approach for public projects. So while it's new to Iowa, it is a common practice amongst the rest of the country. And part of the reason there hasn't been a whole lot of projects complete or done is because it's so new. There's a number of projects that are in the docket that are being pursued this avenue. It's just there are very few that have been completed within that time frame. We've been involved in 2 at different levels and different scopes of projects, but certainly value added to this, and be happy to answer any questions on that. I feel like there's a few things that I'm missing out on that. I would say from a timeline standpoint, our goal, certainly there's more value in the contractor being involved as long as possible in the pre-con phase. So really the earliest date that we would be able to approve their services and bring them on board would be an approval at that October 18th board meeting, or council meeting, excuse me. So that's kind of the timeline that we're looking at. How that relates back to maybe the design schedule is, our design timeline is looking to have construction drawings completed the end of January, beginning of February. So they will be right kind of in the mix of some of those vital design times. In addition to that, we also have the interpretive planning and exhibit design consultant that's going to be on board. So there's a lot of things happening at that point that I think there'll be value added to have those services if you choose to move forward with it. So happy to answer any other questions or clarify anything for you guys.
Anything else, Council?
my head's spinning. Yeah, this CMR, is there an RFP to hire one of these? I mean, is that a circumstance where they provide a proposal and then a group decides on which one to hire?
Correct. And so this would be the first part of that, I believe, on that time frame. So the qualifications would be, well, the issuance of the RFQ would be September 20th. So that's when we would have your traditional proposal that, you know, for example, our services we gave for this project. They would submit that, and there would be a evaluation matrix that you guys would score based on that. Once the qualified CMR respondents are selected, then they would receive the RFP, which would be the outlining of the fees and some of those other services, where then they would submit a proposal. So typically, you would either select it in any other context from a design professional. You would select it based on, you know, qualifications or qualifications in a proposal. They separate those two to identify the qualified, and then allow those qualified to submit, you know, fees and that sort of thing. That's similar to when, not to confuse you anymore, Mike, but that's similar down the road. Once a CMR is selected, they'll have a similar criteria in helping identify the subcontractors as well.
So, just to put it in something I might understand a little better, this person will ultimately be the head coach of the whole concept and have a lot to do with selecting subsequent assistant coaches, AKA contractors, subcontractors, et cetera, et cetera. Is that anywhere close?
You're close. You're close. Yes. They would be. You would have, and from a contractual standpoint, the city would have a contract with us as a design professional, and then you would have a contract with the CMR as well. They would hold all the contracts, all the risk, as a general would. They're just more or less getting involved earlier and having a little more control over who those subs would be. And to Scott's point, it's not, you know, purely based. They have to qualify those bids before they take the low bid.
And you continue to work with this individual very closely to make sure that they follow through with the design you have created.
Correct. And I would say there's more of a team approach to this, whereas design bid build, there's more of a silo approach. So design bid build, we finish design, then they come in and build that, and then there's either harmony or there's, you know, maybe sometimes some friction as well.
Sure.
This happens on the front end so that friction and that harmony is figured out before it goes out to bid. So I would say that there's a good partnership from a team standpoint through the design.
Yeah, well, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and to a dummy like me, that guy that I talked to in Des Moines, you know, he made things clear to me, and that's the advantage I think I see.
Yeah.
It's not just the contractor and those people, but
And it's new enough, Mayor, that we're still learning, right? And contractors are still learning. So there is continued ed that is continually happening, so we can best, you know, handle these situations the right way.
Right.
Will these typically apply from just within the state of Iowa, or could it be a broader scope of search for someone to fill this position?
Given this location, I would say you could see Minnesota for sure. I wouldn't say it's a huge project for a CMR to come, you know, from a different state.
Sure.
Although the draw and the uniqueness of it will bring appeal to them as well. So there's a number of firms that have been increasingly targeting Iowa due to this change.
It might look good on someone's resume.
Right. Yep.
I'd only add to that, Austin, that the legal requirements require that we publish it in a clearinghouse that has statewide circulation. So whether those would go beyond that, but we wouldn't be looking to promote it in South Dakota or Minnesota. You know, our responsibility would be to put it out there into Iowa.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. If you're done, or you got more?
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, council, I'll entertain a motion to authorize issuance of CMAR process and public notice for a RFQ. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Bennett, seconded by Mark, that we approve the authorization of the CMAR process. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Thank you all. Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Austin. Interim Chief of Police report. Welcome, Mike.
Mayor and council, it's a hard act to follow, so I only got about 15 things here to cover real quick. Couple real quick things for you. We talked last time I was here that Officer Brendan Gray started the academy last week. This is his second academy class, and with having a new officer come on board, a new employee, we're going to start a mentoring program here at the department. So we've selected an officer to be his quote-unquote mentor. This isn't a supervisor, it's not a trainer, it's somebody that he can connect with here at the department and can go down and meet him for dinner time to time at the academy. Just have a point of contact here for him too. So that's something that we're going to go through and do. And so Officer Pavelka, who's been with us for about a year or so, is going to be his mentor we're going through. Tomorrow we bring on board a new dispatcher, is Miguel Zamora. He brings with us 2 years of experience in the Worth County Sheriff's Office as a dispatcher. Also, he is bilingual, so we'll have a fluent Spanish speaker in the dispatch center when he's working, which will be a great asset and benefit to us as well. And then lastly, or actually two things. We've had some quick previous discussions with some city administration about looking forward in the year to trick or treat coming up on October 31st. And from the department, we looked at some times and historically there. So when the council's ready to look at setting a time there, we'd like to go from a 5:30 p.m. to a 7:30 p.m. if that would be suitable for the council when they're ready to move on that and make a motion for that in the future. And then just found out from Councilman Brandt's question last time on the theft from motor vehicles we had. The officers are still working on those. We made a lot of leeway in the investigations there, but there's still a lot of work to do there. But they're using some out-of-the-box investigative techniques there that we look to be very fruitful for us to make some closure on those cases. And along those lines, I just remind everybody at night, lock your doors, not keep valuables in your car. Every single victim that we had from that was because they had the vehicles left unlocked overnight. So that was 4 quick topics there, and that's all I have unless you have any questions.
How do you evaluate the CSO?
It's been very successful, very, very successful. Paul's enjoyed it. The officers have enjoyed having here. Lots of positive feedback from people in the community with it. He was at the football game last Friday night, walking around, helping out. He was in the park Sunday morning for the last church in the park and also for the antique sale there too. So, I mean, he's been very involved, and that's taken some of the pressure off some of the officers. We discussed at the July meeting right after the 4th of July how we had the busiest July 4th we've had in several years, and having him here took some of that pressure off the officers to do the more urgent and prudent things to their time and resources as opposed to some of the things that Paul could take off their plate for them. So it's going very well.
Before we get to budget next year, do you anticipate that we might have to expand their hours on the CSO?
I think at this point it's too premature to say, you know, with some leadership change and stuff at the department, we've been short an officer or two there, and I think we're full staff next year if we get some everybody up in training and we get Brennan out of the academy. And I think it'll be more appropriate to look at it next year if we are fully staffed, go through the year to say that we do or do not need additional funding. I think where we're sitting right now, we're sitting really well with that.
The day I talked to him, he was running like crazy.
He's busy, but it's not, I mean, there's always something to do. We just prioritize and go forward with what we can. And, you know, he's only working part-time, so some days he's only here for 4 hours, and to get a lot of stuff done in 4 hours, someone has to wait a day. And that's not that's not life and death, that's not open investigations that need to be solved with victims waiting for resolution there. These are, you know, more quality of life type things that can wait sometimes 24 hours.
I thought it was very positive, at least the time I was there at, I think it was Bash at the park, and and there were a couple of pairs of officers that are simply walking through and, not with stern faces or any of that, but communicating with the folks that were there, and it was a very cordial, acquaintance with the officers, and I thought that was very positive.
We bought 2,000 temporary tattoos for kids to hand out. We're down to maybe 500 left because they've been going out in the parks on weekends, just not even for an event, and just meeting with kids. I think you'll see in the monthly reports we put, just, officers interacting with the public. I've asked them to maximize their efforts in doing that this summer. And I think that's shown that they've taken that to heart, and you've seen them more in the city park at those events, and even just on random Thursday nights or Friday nights, up in the park, spending time up there, so.
Yeah, it's neat. Any other things, council? Thank you. Public Works Director's report. Jeremy?
Anything for you? Any questions for me?
Do we have anything for Jeremy? Anything? Thanks, Jeremy. Under Mayor's report, what's that? Mike, Clear Lake Fire Department.
Mayor, Council, now that you're talking about museum, as soon as you get that done in 3 years, you can help us add on the fire museum, so you're going to start planning ahead, we can get that done too. I think Doug already sent you over some information as far as calls. August was really a busy month for us. 162 calls at the fire department. That's about 39% higher than it was August of last year. So we've had many more calls. We're about 18% higher year to date than we were last year. Having 4 people there 14 hours a day has been a real help for the volunteers. Not having to get those many calls to go as a backup has really been helpful. So hopefully that can continue, and it's going to let up a little bit, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I did have an interesting house fire call. Thank God we had some smoke detectors in the house. Somebody, if you don't think your gas log fireplace has heat in it from just a pilot light, you can ask these people, because they put a box in front of the fireplace and cut off all the heat source venting and set the box on fire. And luckily she had a smoke detector in the house that set it off. We were able to get there and put the fire out. Otherwise, if she wouldn't have been home, the house would have been on fire. So just think about that if on your pilot lights, even on a gas stove, a gas log fireplace, there's some heat there. Coming up 9/11, obviously, we invite you to our 9/11 ceremony. It's going to be pretty much traditional what we have done in the past. We'll have the high school choir will be there. We hope to have some taps being played by one of our firefighters, and I try to talk my grandson into playing a bugle, but he hasn't learned to play it yet, but he's working on it. And we'll have the flag raising ceremony, obviously, and we'll have the helmet presentation. Very interesting speaker coming this year. He was at the Pentagon in 9/11. He was a captain in the Navy, so he's going to be coming and giving us a talk. So I think it's going to be a really interesting time. We're going to get to meet him, and he'll be part of our presentation. He'll be carrying out the military helmet. So Mr. Captain Johnson will be here as part of our ceremony. Also, our pancake breakfast, I'm going to put a plug in for that too. A month from now, pancake breakfast. So please come over and enjoy that. We have special pancakes, special recipe pancakes. It's been a secret for many years, and we're not going to tell you what's in them. So please come. We'll be taking Bud out of the water soon. The water's down low enough right now. We hope to be able to get it off the lift. But we will be taking Bud out and putting him in storage for the winter. We do have some new items at the museum came in too. And now, speaking of museums, we had new items. Former director of the Iowa Fire Service Training Bureau, George Oster, his family's given us some stuff that we will be putting on display there. Hopefully, it'll be ready to go for next spring when we open up for the new season. So, other than that, we're set to go.
Will there be Mike Keefe Jeopardy questions while we eat pancakes?
There might be. There could be a real good chance of that.
It's traditional,
Well, we'll give it a shot. Thanks.
Anything else for Mike? Thanks, Mike.
You bet.
Under Mayor's report, we had the Clear Lake Seawall rededication ceremony September 1st. I thought it was well attended, quite windy, quite warm. Thank you, Beth Ann, for the historical details on all that. But that seawall is now, as many of us know, all on the State Historical Registry, and we're very, very proud of that piece of mortar and granite. It's where many of us go to stare at the lake, whether there's ice on it, or whether there's water on it, or whether there's sailors on it, no matter what. It's kind of magic down there. And many, many pictures are taken of all kinds. And so we are very, very pleased to have that rededication. And Scott Nee Fenton with RDG, architect, and he's a preservation specialist in the state of Iowa. He was there. If you go to Des Moines, everybody knows who Scott Nee Fenton is. So we are very, very pleased to have he and his wife here at that time. So move on to Scott, City Administrator.
Yeah, just real quick run through these items. South 15th Street, everybody plays park and playground inclusive project. Was up there today. They're pouring the fall protection area. Really looking neat. And so it's coming along really well, and excited about that. So if you get a chance to pop up there and kind of walk around a little bit, it's pretty exciting to see. 4th Avenue South, that's the RAISE project that we received funding for. We're only one of 2 cities in the state to get that funding, so I had a call with U.S. Department of Transportation folks and also our Iowa Department of Transportation folks going through what is going to need to be into that agreement. And again, that's one of those that requires a procurement policy and process for selection of consultants and all that. So hopefully have something coming forward soon for council on that one. Just again, I mentioned it earlier, the City Hall renovation project, going to release the plans this Thursday or Friday, so we're kind of doing that preemptively, and then we'll come back on the 18th and have you actually formally set the date for the hearing and the letting, but we want to get it out in the contractor's hands as early as we possibly could. Last but not least, as you know, we're advertising for the Health, Wellness, Recreation Director position, and we've got that running until September 22nd. So far, got a few in. Wouldn't call it robust by any means at all, so I don't want to get your hopes up, but we'll see how it goes. But it's a tough time to be searching for those kind of spots right now just after school open. So I wasn't super optimistic about the outlook, but we take a run at it and see what happens. You never know. So.
Any questions for Scott? Thank you all. Thank for all your attendance here tonight. Safe trip, you Brits. I hope you have a safe one home. Thank you.